Hello, I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist, and every couple of weeks I write a blog post all about the future of radio and where radio's going. And this is it for June the 4th, 2023, talking about AM, longwave, and radio on TV. Surprisingly, but possibly inevitably, Ford has decided that after all it will put AM radio in its new vehicles in the US. It might have been radio speaking with one voice. It might have been threatened legislation, even though many trade groups agreed with Ford and opposed the bill. Ars Technica points out that for a radio alert to actually work, it has to be turned on and tuned to the right wavelength. Good point, which makes sense, even though radio sets use frequencies, not wavelengths these days, if we're going to be strictly accurate. Also, 97% of Americans have a cell phone, says Ars Technica, which is already designed to receive wireless emergency alerts, and those alerts can be received even if the cellular network is unable to send calls or other data. Well, it could be good news for those countries that still rely on AM radio, the US and Canada at least. The UK is continuing to turn AM off. The BBC says that 5 Live will be off AM by December 2027. They've been slowly turning off BBC local radio's AM transmitters as well. No news on the BBC Radio 4 medium wave relays, but you can probably bet that they're not going to exist for an awfully long time. Commercial radio is, too, turning off AM output slowly, with Talk Sport announcing a reduction in coverage, and Absolute Radio having vacated it entirely, which hasn't really hurt it. They've just posted their highest ever total brand reach at 5.3 million. However, Australia typically takes its in-car equipment from that in the UK market. We drive on the left down here. We've got DAB+. We don't have HD radio or Sirius XM. So if I was an AM broadcaster in Australia, I'd not be breathing too easily. Now, looking at longwave, in the UK, BBC Radio 4 is finally coming off longwave. At least separate scheduling for longwave is to cease in March 2024. So that's an end to the daily service and the longer and superior version of Yesterday in Parliament. It'll be off completely by December 2027. I say it's the end. That'll be scheduled elsewhere. The BBC says, confusingly, that the changes are in anticipation of the closure of the longwave platform owned and operated by a third party, which is coming to the end of its life as a technology. Which seems a little disingenuous because longwave isn't owned and operated by a third party at all, though BBC Radio 4's longwave transmitters are owned and operated by Arqiva, just like their FM and DAB transmission network. What are they trying to say there, I wonder? RTE Radio 1 came off 252 kHz longwave in the middle of April. In Denmark, DR Langbølge, probably pronounced that entirely wrong. Anyway, that's ceasing at the end of this year. And in Iceland, the RUV will also cease next year. That'll just leave stations from Poland, Mongolia, Romania and Morocco on longwave. And good luck getting the Mongolian output even now, since they're on non-standard frequencies that your radio probably won't pick up. It looks to me as if longwave is rapidly heading for total closure. Now, I spent some time in the UK a few weeks ago, and will do so again shortly, in Manchester this time. And while I can and do watch some of the domestic output of the BBC here in Australia, because, geo-blocking doesn't really work. What surprised me watching it in the UK and in a UK time zone was the amount of radio shows on the BBC News television channel. The mornings have a simulcast of Nicky Campbell's phone-in from 5 Live, and it's capably done. But Campbell sits in a poorly lit studio with a big microphone partially obscuring his face, big chunky headphones on, and a computer monitor also in view. His guest was on a video link rather than just audio, but otherwise no thought appeared to have been put into dressing the studio for television. No affordance seems to have been made for the cameras. The weekends are full of 30-minute fillers from BBC Radio 4, and unlike Nicky Campbell's phone-in, which has some nifty graphics and production at least, those filler shows are put together with all the production values of a Zoom call. For half an hour I watched Nick Robinson interview someone in a studio. Rolled-up posters had been carefully placed behind each of them, but the vision entirely consisted of 2 locked-off cameras switching between one and the other. The microphone once more obscured their faces, and both were wearing large headphones. Another show, with the excellent Ross Atkins interviewing Jeremy Bowen, was recorded in a different radio studio. Headphones were worn once more, but no attempt had been made to dress the studio at all, with a 1980s door behind one of the two locked-off cameras. Both appeared to at least ensure that their faces were visible, though. If you compare that with LBC, who used desk-mounted microphones and a dressed studio, albeit horribly ugly headphones, or Talk TV's radio output where presenters wear lapel microphones and earpieces, or even 7 years ago Paul Henry on New Zealand TV and radio, it's inexplicable to me that the BBC hasn't done more of a good job with their radio to TV output. Elsewhere, the radio.com domain appears to have been withdrawn from auction. It still forwards to its owner, Odyssey. They were wanting at least $2.5 million for it, and it begs the question, does nobody want that domain really? Or has the EBU's .radio domain destroyed the .com value? The UK's latest radar figures came out with good news for Bauer's Greatest Hits Radio, even before the Ken Bruce effect takes place. Matt Deegan takes a look at the figures with his usual attention to details. Links to that and to other things I mention in my newsletter at james.crid.land. One of the many BBC local radio bosses, Rodri Telfan-Davies, has spoken with critic David Lloyd and doesn't seem to either understand radio nor be across the issues, which is rather disappointing. Meanwhile, Matt Deegan, again, takes a look at what BBC local radio could be doing and the opportunities it could have in the future. And thank you to Clyde Broadcast, who become my latest supporter. Clyde Broadcast are experts in the design, specification and installation of radio studios and radio stations, delivering full turnkey solutions worldwide. And I'm grateful to them for their support, as well as Richard Hilton and James Masterton, Brun Audio Consulting, Soma FM, and Media Realms radio websites. If you'd like to support this work in any way, you can buy me a coffee. Become a member to give regularly, or just give a one-off coffee or 5. Buymeacoffee.com/James Cridland is where to go. Now, I'm looking forward next week to be at Radio Days North America in Toronto, and then in Manchester for Pod News Live. My contact details are on my website, james.cridland.net. If you're there too and you'd like to catch up, you can also follow me on Mastodon. Just give me a search, james@crid.land, and you'll find me there. My professional website has more details about who I am, what I do, and whether I can help you further as well. And let me talk to you very quickly about Pod News Live. It's in Media City in Salford. And it's the first on June the 13th, the first of a set of local day-long conferences that focus on sharing knowledge and networking in the business of podcasting. We've got speakers from Crowd Network and the BBC and Mike Media and many more. It's an event which is small enough to network and varied enough to make sure that anyone can get the most out of the event. Please do book your tickets. They're very cheap. And it would be lovely to see you in the Lowry Centre. June the 13th is when it is, and you'll find more information at podnews.net/live. My professional website, I use the word professional lightly, has more details about who I am and what I do and whether I can help you further. You'll find that at james.cridland.net. But until next time, keep listening.